leading into Week 8, there are still plenty of teams for whom Super Bowl aspirations are still out there. But there are a growing number that have totally let all hope go, and for them, it's all about looking forward to next year, and there's no better place to be at the start of next season than at the top of the NFL draft. So whether you're bombing for Bosa or hurting for Herbert, we're not going to discriminate here, but we want to look at which teams are most likely to end up there at the top with the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. Brought to you, of course, by MyBookie. I'm George Chahrouri, the big guy Eric Eager alongside. So Eric, first pick. Who's in the running?
Who's going to be hankering for some Haskins?
I like it.
Yeah, so we do our simulation as we do each week, and the teams near the bottom in terms of total wins projected are the Arizona Cardinals, the New York Giants, who we saw on Monday night, the San Francisco 49ers, the Oakland Raiders, the Cleveland Browns, and the Buffalo Bills. Some of these teams need a quarterback. Some will be looking at the Nick Bosas of the world.
All those teams kind of jumbled together, so we're going to talk about some of the separators, some things that might cause one to have a worse record than the other. Before we do, though, I want to tell you a little bit about a place where you can actually go profit off of this information, and that's mybookie.ag. Regardless of the sport that you're interested in or the day of the week that you're watching, mybookie.ag has what you need. They offer all the different bet types. They have great customer service. They make it easy to cash out. They even offer in-game live betting. We each use it, specifically that last feature, and we could not have a single complaint. So head to mybookie.ag, use PFF as your promo code, and you will get a dollar-for-dollar match on your first deposit. It's pretty simple. PFF plus mybookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid. All right, so you just mentioned 5-6 teams. We'll throw Buffalo in there. Arizona, New York, the Giants, the Niners, Oakland, Cleveland, and Buffalo. What's one way that we can sort of tease these teams apart and say maybe this team has a slightly better chance?
Yeah, I think Arizona has the decided edge right now just because, they're projected for almost a full win lower than anybody else. And the big reason is schedule, right? So they have a top 5 most difficult schedule. So far, they only have the 1 win to show for it up until now. And you look and you think, okay, they have to play their own divisional rivals in the NFC West. A bit tougher than it looked before the season began. And the AFC West is very formidable as well. So I think from that perspective, they have a decided edge for that number 1 pick. And it's interesting, right? Because they took care of their quarterback situation in last draft by drafting Josh Rosen. So they'll be in a prime position, I think, with a roster that they're trying to trade some players. They'll be in a prime position to trade back and maybe accumulate picks or get a blue chip guy at number 1.
You mentioned they have a tough schedule. Well, they're also potentially trading away their best player in Patrick Peterson, which could only add to that. Let's go to the flip side now, a team near and dear to my heart, who I would love to end up with the first pick, but maybe things aren't quite going to work in their favor.
Yeah, so San Francisco is a team that has, one of the bottom 5 easiest schedules in the NFL. They've had a tough one moving, having played Green Bay already, having played the Rams, so on and so forth. So they actually have, starting this week with Arizona, a relatively easy schedule. So maybe if C.J. Beathard sort of turns it around, they might, ironically move out of, the contention for the top pick and, since they have a quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo, that might not be the worst thing in the world, but with a roster that's pretty talented, it would be nice for them to get either a bunch of picks for that top pick or a blue chip guy at 1.
So now let's get to the topic of conversation. So you've got the Cardinals, they don't need a quarterback. You've got the Niners, they don't need a quarterback. You've got the Raiders, who I'm going to argue, and you're going to agree with me, need a quarterback. You've got Cleveland that took, obviously, Baker Mayfield, so they don't need a quarterback. And the Bills, depending on who you talk to, look, they're probably not going to take a quarterback because they invested heavily in Josh Allen. So if one of the teams that doesn't need a quarterback gets that top pick, what do you think happens?
Yeah, I think you have to move down, right? Because there's going to be teams like the New York Giants trying to justify their pick of Saquon Barkley last April. They're going to need a quarterback. And if it becomes such that there's only 1 or 2 guys that's worthy of that top pick, they're going to have to move into that position to get it. So I think that if you have, pick 1 or 2 and the Giants and the Raiders are behind you, especially now that the Raiders have all the draft capital in the world, I think you trade back and I think you reload your roster with more depth than the sort of blue chip guy at the beginning.
What'll be really interesting to watch is, look, there will be teams that need a quarterback, but how desperately do they need one? Because if you only have one team, like, for example, the Giants, who need a quarterback, it'll be hard for you to leverage, that to get more picks. But a team like the Raiders comes in, they give up on Carr. Maybe a team like the Dolphins, they're going to desperately need a quarterback. You could look at the Broncos as well.
Yep.
So the more bidders you get in there, the more these top 1, 2, 3 picks are going to be valued.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you've got teams like, let's take the Niners, for example. They have a great quarterback coming back. They have a lot of talent that they've stockpiled. They might be able to turn a top 3 or 4 pick into 3 or 4 picks.
Yep. And
that can drastically change their organization. Let me ask you this. Which of these teams is most likely to take a running back in the top 5?
I think, like, just from everything we've heard, if Oakland and John Gruden isn't the genius that sort of you think he is, I think Oakland would be the team of these that would take a running back at the top. I don't see San Francisco doing it. I don't see Arizona doing it, Cleveland or Buffalo. So I don't think Oakland does either. But maybe the Oakland Raiders goes ahead and doubles down on what the Giants did a season ago.
That's very hurtful because John Gruden knows exactly what he's doing. This rebuilding plan is brilliant. I'm not being sarcastic, which is usually what I do. He had a QB camp, not a running back camp. I will remind you of that. So keep that in mind. We'll, of course, update these as we go throughout the season. So, look, one of these teams wins a game they're not supposed to win. That'll change these drastically, and we'll update you as we go because, look, hope is never lost, whether it's, well, for this year, sometimes it goes. But we'll look ahead. For all of our content, you can head to profootballfocus.com and, of course, check us out on the PFF forecast.